I want you to picture two friends, same city, same age, both 31, same approximate income, both earning around $82,000 a year. They went to the same college, graduated the same year, and have been living in the same neighborhood for the past 4 years. The first friend, let's call her Jamie. 2 years ago, Jamie bought a condo. It was the right move, everyone said. Stop throwing money away on rent, build equity, be a real adult. She put $45,000 down, her parents helped with closing costs, and she moved in feeling like she had finally arrived. The condo is beautiful. Exposed brick, a balcony she uses in good weather. Her mortgage payment is $1,890 per month. Property taxes add another $280. HOA fees are $385 per month. She handles her own maintenance now, which last year cost her $2,400 in a hot water heater replacement and 2 plumbing visits. She feels proud. She feels stable. She feels like she made the grown-up choice. The second friend, let's call her Mara. Mara still rents. She has rented for 9 years. She moves every 2 to 3 years, not because she is unstable, but because she has figured out how to use mobility as a financial tool. She pays $1,650 per month for a 2-bedroom apartment. When her neighborhood got expensive 2 years ago, she moved to a better neighborhood for the same price. When a job offer came in another city last spring, she took it without a second thought. Mara's financial life is not flashy, but she has invested every dollar she would have spent on a down payment, roughly $52,000, in a diversified index fund. That investment is now worth approximately $71,000. She contributes $800 to it every month. Jamie looks more financially successful from the outside. Mara actually is more financially successful from any objective measure. This isn't a story about renting being better than buying. This is a story about a belief so deeply embedded in American financial culture that homeownership is always the intelligent choice that most people never stop to examine whether it is actually true for their specific circumstances. Let me start with a concept that will reframe how you think about housing costs for the rest of your life. Every dollar you spend on housing costs money twice. There is the obvious cost, the check you write every month. And then there is the invisible cost, what that money could have become if it had been invested instead. Economists call this the opportunity cost. Most people think about the first and completely ignore the second. Jamie's total monthly housing costs come to approximately $2,680 per month. Mora's total housing cost is $1,650 per month. The difference is $1,030 per month. That $1,030 per month, invested at a historical average market return of roughly 8% per year over 30 years, becomes approximately $1.5 million. That is the invisible second cost of Jamie's housing choice. The first dimension is the true cost of ownership. The industry rule of thumb for ongoing maintenance alone is 1% to 2% of the home's value per year, meaning a $500,000 home should be budgeted at $5,000 to $10,000 per year in maintenance costs, not including improvements. The second dimension is the cost of illiquidity. The down payment, often $40,000 to $100,000, sits in the walls of a building, unavailable for investing, unavailable for emergencies, unavailable for opportunities. The third dimension is the hidden cost of commitment. Homeowners face transaction costs, typically 6% to 10% of the home's value, every time they want to move. A homeowner who sells a $500,000 home and buys another has spent $30,000 to $50,000 on friction costs alone. Renters spend zero. The first reason renting can be the financially superior choice is that the rent versus buy math genuinely favors renters in high-cost markets, and more U.S. cities are high-cost markets than most people realize. The calculation depends on the price-to-rent ratio. A ratio below 15 generally favors buying. A ratio between 15 and 20 is a gray zone. A ratio above 20 generally favors renting. In San Francisco, the ratio has ranged from 35 to 45. In New York, it sits around 30 to 40. In Los Angeles, it regularly exceeds 25.
Researchers at Florida Atlantic University have built a rent versus buy model calculating the break-even point in hundreds of U.S. cities. In many coastal cities, that break-even period exceeds 15 years. In some markets, it exceeds 20. For someone who moves every 5 to 7 years, buying in these markets is a financial loss. Jamie's condo cost $480,000. Comparable two bedrooms rent for approximately $1,700 to $1,800 per month. The price-to-rent ratio on her purchase is approximately 23. Her break-even period is roughly 14 years. She plans to stay 5 to 7 years. She is unlikely to reach her break-even. The second reason is that renting gives you geographic optionality that has increasingly enormous financial value in a mobile economy. Renting is increasingly the housing choice of people who understand that mobility is a financial asset. Job switchers earn salary increases of roughly 10% to 20% on average, while people who stay in the same role earn roughly 3 to 5% annually. Maura took a job offer last spring that came with a $28,000 salary increase. She accepted it in a week. She was out of her apartment in 60 days. Her total moving cost was $3,200. Jamie received a similar offer the same month. She did not take it. The logistics of selling the condo and the recognition that she was 2 years from her break-even and would likely lose money made the move feel impossible. She stayed. She received a 4% raise instead. Over 5 years, Maura's mobility advantage is worth approximately $180,000 in additional lifetime income. That number is not in any rent versus buy calculator anyone has ever shown Jamie. The third reason renting is smarter than most people think is that home equity is not the investment most people believe it to be, and the alternative is consistently better. Home prices have historically appreciated at roughly 4% per year in nominal terms, or about 1 to 2% per year after adjusting for inflation. Yale economist Robert Shiller found that after accounting for all costs, the real inflation-adjusted return on residential real estate is close to zero over long periods. Leverage amplifies both gains and losses. A person with $50,000 in a down payment on a $400,000 home who watches the home decline in value by 10% has lost $40,000 in equity on a $50,000 investment, an 80% loss on their actual cash. A diversified stock market index fund has returned approximately 7% annually after inflation over long historical periods. Maura's $52,000 invested instead of a down payment is already worth $71,000 after 2 years. The $800 monthly contribution from the cost spread over 30 years at 8% becomes approximately $1.2 million on top of that. These are not edge case numbers. They are the mathematical output of compounding applied consistently to the spread. The fourth reason is that flexibility compounds in ways that are almost impossible to calculate in advance, but that show up powerfully in life outcomes over time. Nope, not done yet. Flexibility is not just about jobs. Divorce, family illness, a career pivot, a relationship that requires you to be somewhere else. These events are either financially manageable or financially devastating, depending on whether you own a home that must be sold under adverse conditions. The financial cost of a forced home sale is underappreciated. On a $450,000 home, transaction costs alone are $22,000 to $27,000 in agent commissions, closing costs, and repairs required for sale. A renter who needs to move gives 60 days notice and pays nothing in exit costs. A renter who loses their job can move to a cheaper apartment within 60 to 90 days. A homeowner who loses their job has a mortgage payment that does not adjust, and a home that may take 3 to 6 months to sell.
Studies on small business formation find that renters are more likely to start businesses than homeowners because the financial pressure and illiquidity of homeownership makes the risk tolerance required to start a business harder to maintain. The fifth reason is that the true costs of homeownership are systematically underestimated by buyers in ways that reliably produce financial stress within the first 5 years of ownership. In the first 10 years of owning a home, the average buyer spends approximately 2.5% of the purchase price in maintenance and repairs, meaning a $400,000 home typically generates $10,000 in maintenance costs in the first decade, on top of all planned costs. HOA fees have increased at roughly 5% to 7% per year in many U.S. markets. Jamie's $385 per month HOA fee will be approximately $590 per month in 5 years. It will be $900 per month in 10 years. Property taxes in many states have risen faster than home values due to reassessment policies. The combination of maintenance, HOA increases, insurance, and tax reassessments means the true cost of homeownership grows faster than most buyers project. Mara's rent is fixed by her lease. She knows exactly what her housing cost is. She can plan around it. She cannot be surprised by a $2,400 hot water heater in December. The sixth reason renting can be the smarter move is that the social pressure to buy, not the financial math, is driving most purchase decisions, and that pressure is costing people who give into it enormous amounts of money. The narrative that renting is throwing money away is one of the most durable and most financially damaging myths in American personal finance. The idea that rent payments produce nothing ignores that rent produces housing, which is the thing you are buying. A $380,000 mortgage at 7% interest has a monthly payment of approximately $2,528, of which roughly $2,217 goes to interest and only $311 goes to principal reduction in the first month in the first week. The person paying $1,650 in rent is not throwing money away any more than the person paying $2,528 in mortgage payments, of which $2,217 disappears as interest expense. Studies find social comparison, keeping up with peers, is a primary driver of purchase timing for first-time buyers. The seventh reason is perhaps the most important. Renting while investing the difference is an executable, proven, mathematically rigorous strategy, not a consolation prize for people who could not afford to buy. I am not done yet. The rent and invest strategy requires 3 commitments. First, calculate the exact cost spread between renting and owning in your market. Not estimate it, calculate it. This takes 2 hours and produces a number. Second, invest that spread every single month, automatically, without requiring a decision. The investment must be automatic because the behavioral temptation to spend the spread is real and consistent and will win if the investment is not automated. Third, resist the social pressure to validate your choice by buying before the math supports it. This is the hardest commitment and the one most people fail. Mara has made all 3. She ran the numbers, she automated the investment, and she is clear about the reasoning behind her choice. She does not feel defensive about renting. She feels strategic about it. The strategy works in reverse when the math changes. If the price-to-rent ratio is 12 or 13, buying might be the better financial choice, and the same analytical framework will tell her clearly. She is not philosophically committed to renting. She is committed to running the actual numbers. This week, calculate the price-to-rent ratio for your specific market. Find 2 comparable properties, one for sale, one for rent. Divide the sale price by the annual rent. If the result is above 20, the math favors renting. If it is below 15, buying may be advantageous. This month, calculate the exact spread between your current rent and the estimated total cost of owning a comparable property. Set up an automatic monthly transfer in that amount to a brokerage account or index fund. Not a mental note, a scheduled transfer. This quarter, If you were considering buying in the next 12 months, run a proper rent versus buy analysis using the New York Times rent versus buy calculator. See what your actual break-even point is. If the break-even exceeds your planned stay, buying is likely the inferior choice right now. This video is for educational purposes, not financial advice. Speak with a qualified professional for decisions about your specific situation, because housing markets, personal tax situations, and individual circumstances vary significantly. Now, back to Jamie and Mara. Jamie is not in a bad situation. Her condo may appreciate. She may stay long enough to reach her break-even. She may look back in 15 years and feel vindicated. Or the market may shift. Life may require a move, and the transaction costs will absorb a meaningful portion of the equity she built. What she knows is that she made the decision based on social expectation, rather than specific analysis of her market, her mobility needs, and her investment alternatives. Mara is not renting because she cannot afford to buy. She is renting because she ran the numbers, understood her market, valued her mobility, and made a deliberate choice to invest the spread. Her net worth is growing at a rate that Jamie's is not. The virtuous cycle of strategic renting: lower fixed housing costs, free capital. Capital invested at market returns compounds. Compounding produces growing net worth. Growing net worth creates the financial security that homeownership is supposed to provide, without the geographic anchor. The conventional cycle: social pressure drives early buying in unfavorable markets. High ownership costs reduce investable capital. Low investment accumulation produces financial fragility. Financial fragility makes every unexpected expense feel like a crisis. The choice is simply whether you want to make the housing decision that looks right from the outside, or the one that is right when you do the actual math. Home is wherever your financial future is growing. For some people, that is a purchased property in a favorable market with a clear plan to stay. For others, it is a rented apartment and a brokerage account that grows every month, quietly, without requiring a plumber. The grown-up choice is the one that comes from the numbers, not the one that comes from the dinner party.